I wasn't scheduled that night. I remember staring at the message from the supervisor, wondering why they needed me so urgently. The private clinic rarely called anyone in, especially not for night duty. Still, I said yes. I needed the hours, and I told myself it was just another shift. But the moment I stepped inside, something felt staged, as if the building was holding its breath. The hallways were too quiet, too polished, too perfectly lit for 2 in the morning. Private clinics weren't usually eerie. They were predictable, controlled, almost sterile. But that night, every sound felt amplified, like the walls were listening. I checked the patient list at the nurse's station. The usual names were there, post-op cases, a few overnight observations, nothing unusual. But the monitors on the wall were acting strange. One line blinked softly, pulsing green like a heartbeat. Patient 302, active. I frowned. We didn't have a room 302. Our third floor only had offices and one closed-off wing that was supposedly under renovation since before I started working here. I thought it was a glitch. Private clinics loved their expensive equipment but hated maintaining it. Still, something about that blinking light felt intentional. During my first round, I tried to ignore it. I moved from room to room, checking vitals, adjusting IVs, listening to quiet breathing. It all felt mechanical, like I was following a script. But every time I looked back toward the station, the monitor for 302 kept glowing, steady, patient, waiting. Around 3:14 a.m., I finally gave in. I keyed into the system again. No listing for room 302, no assigned patient, no record, just that inexplicable, pulsing signal on the monitor. The hallway leading to the third floor felt colder than the rest of the building. My shoes echoed in a way that made me feel exposed, like someone was matching my steps half a second behind. When I reached the intersection near the renovation wing, I noticed something that made me stop completely. A light, faint, warm, and steady, coming from a door that shouldn't exist. There was no construction equipment, no taped-off entrance, no signs. Just a solitary door with frosted glass and a soft glow behind it, as if someone had left a lamp on inside. My breath caught in my throat. A part of me wanted to turn around, to tell myself the shift wasn't worth this creeping feeling sliding down my spine. But another part of me felt drawn, almost pulled. Like whoever was inside needed me to see them. I checked my watch. 3:17 a.m. My fingers were trembling when I reached for the doorknob. I didn't know why. I'd opened countless doors in this clinic, but this one felt different before I even touched it. Warmer, like someone on the other side had been holding it from their side just a moment earlier. I hesitated, told myself I was imagining it, and finally pushed the door open. The first thing I noticed wasn't the silence. It was the feeling. A rush of something, someone moving through me. Not a presence in the room. A presence inside my head. That was the moment I realized I hadn't walked into a room. I'd walked into a memory that wasn't mine. The room looked wrong. Not dangerous, not dirty. Wrong in the way a perfectly staged photograph feels wrong when you realize the person in it doesn't cast a shadow. The lights inside were soft and warm, too warm for a clinic that kept every bulb at the same cold, bluish temperature. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic, and something sweeter underneath, like someone had stood here just long enough to leave a trace of perfume. A chair in the corner had a deep crease in the cushion, still rising slowly as if someone had gotten up when they heard me coming. My heart pushed against my ribs. "This is impossible," I whispered to myself. Private clinics didn't have rooms like this. Soft lighting, fresh flowers in a vase, a carafe of water on the nightstand, half full, with condensation sliding down the glass. Everything was arranged with thoughtful precision, as if a patient had stepped out moments ago. But the bed stopped me cold. The sheets were smoothed perfectly, except for one thing, an indentation exactly where a body would have rested, the shape still molded into the mattress. I didn't want to touch it, but I couldn't stop myself. I pressed my fingertips lightly into the fabric. It was warm, a fresh warmth, human warmth. Something inside me clenched. This was no glitch. I tried to steady my breathing, scanning the room for signs of life. I checked behind the curtain, under the bed, even inside the closet, empty. But the longer I stayed, the more the air shifted around me, charged with something electric, something emotional. That was when the first wave hit. It wasn't a sound, not at first. It was a feeling, sharp, sudden, like someone else's fear breaking open inside my chest. I staggered back, gripping the wall as my vision blurred. The room tilted sideways, and then a flash. A voice not my own. A woman's voice, torn between panic and pleading. "Please don't leave me here. Please, I don't want to remember it." The image was so quick I couldn't hold on to it. A silhouette on the bed, curled in on itself, hands clutching the sheets. The shape of her face smudged out, like my mind wasn't allowed to see the details. When the vision snapped away, I was standing in the center of the room, chest heaving, palms cold and slick with sweat. My own pulse hammered in my ears, but beneath it, faint as a whisper, was something else. Breathing, someone breathing very softly, right behind me. I turned so fast the room blurred. Nothing, no one. But the weight of another presence lingered, pressing against the inside of my skull. Not threatening, more like desperate. I needed answers. I needed something solid, something real to anchor myself. I went to the nightstand and opened the drawer. Inside was a patient chart. Blank, except for a single handwritten line. "She remembers differently every time." My mouth went dry. Who was she, and who wrote that? Before I could take the chart, the overhead lights flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. But in that brief flicker, I saw something in the reflection of the window. My own silhouette, and behind it, the faint outline of another figure sitting on the bed. When the light came back fully, the figure was gone. The indentation on the mattress was deeper. I backed toward the door, pulse skittering, every instinct screaming to leave. But before I stepped out, a final sensation swept over me. A sharp, lonely ache that didn't belong to me, something raw and unfinished. The presence wasn't asking me to leave. It was begging me to stay. I didn't go back to the nurse's station right away. I couldn't. My legs felt unsteady, like the room had drained something from me and left everything inside buzzing. I leaned on the wall outside room 302, trying to breathe normally, trying to convince myself that I hadn't just felt someone else's fear pulse through my chest. But the moment I blinked, a shard of memory, hers, not mine, flashed again, bare feet on cold tiles. A trembling hand gripping the edge of the bed, a whispered, "Not again, please, not again." I squeezed my eyes shut until the image dissolved. I needed to tell myself it was stress, exhaustion, a hallucination, anything rational. But deep down, I already knew the truth. I hadn't imagined any of it. The memory had chosen me. When I finally reached the station, the monitors glowed calmly, as if mocking me. Room 302 still pulsed with that steady, artificial heartbeat. I clicked into the system again, hoping to find at least a trace of logic. Nothing, no listing, no data, no archived room directory. But something new caught my eye, an old digital signature logged just minutes earlier. A name I recognized immediately because I'd seen it framed on the wall near administration. Dr. Raymond Holloway, chief surgeon, dead for 10 years. My mouth dried instantly. Someone was using his ID to access the system tonight, or something. I told myself it had to be a software error, ID spoofing, a system glitch. Anything but the alternative forming in my mind. But a cold instinct whispered otherwise, the same instinct that made me glance toward the elevator at the far end of the hallway. It was moving, slowly descending, stopping on the 3rd floor. No one else was scheduled on this level tonight. A metallic ding echoed through the empty corridor. I braced myself, but when the doors slid open, the elevator was empty, except for a single medical file lying neatly on the floor. I picked it up with trembling hands. No patient photo, No personal details, just a name written in soft, looping handwriting. Elena! A pressure bloomed behind my eyes, sharp enough to make me gasp. And then the second wave hit me, harder, heavier. This time, the memory wasn't a flash. It was a pull. I saw a woman sitting on the floor of room 302, knees drawn to her chest. Her hair was long and dark, hiding most of her face. She rocked slightly, whispering a phrase over and over, like she was trying to convince herself it was true. They said it was therapy, they said it would help me forget, but I remember everything. Her voice cracked on the last word, splintering into a sob. She lifted her head, just enough for me to see the shape of her face. But the features blurred instantly, erased by whatever force controlled the memory. I stumbled backward, clutching the elevator rail for balance as the vision dissolved. My pulse thudded painfully. Elena, she'd been here, she was real, and someone had done something to her inside that room. When I opened the file again, I noticed a faint print on the back cover, like someone had pressed their thumb into the paper hours ago. I traced it absently, and for a terrifying moment it felt warm. That was when I heard it. Soft, close, right behind me. A woman's whisper, frayed with dread but charged with urgency. "Don't let them take your memories too." I spun so fast I bumped into the wall. No one was there. But the whisper still echoed inside me, threading itself into my thoughts like it belonged there. I clutched the file to my chest and forced myself to move, even though every part of me trembled. I needed answers. Not guesses, not flashes, something concrete. I would go back to room 302, not because I wanted to, but because whatever was trapped in that room wasn't done showing me the truth. By the time I reached the third floor again, the hallway felt different, narrower somehow, as if the walls had shifted while I was gone. My footsteps didn't echo the way they had earlier. Instead, each step landed with a muffled softness, like the floor was absorbing the sound. Room 302 waited at the end, its warm glow spilling faintly across the tiles. I hesitated, clutching Elena's file, trying to remind myself who I was, where I was, why I was doing this. But the moment I stepped inside, a familiar pressure tightened behind my eyes. The room hadn't changed, but I had. A cold wave of emotion washed over me, grief that wasn't mine, laced with a guilt so heavy it made my knees weaken. I gripped the edge of the bed to steady myself, but touching it was a mistake. The warmth seeped through my skin instantly, unlocking another memory that surged forward like a breaking dam. This time it wasn't Elena. It was a man. His hands were trembling as he sat on the bed, staring at the door like something was coming for him. He whispered into the dim light, "I wasn't supposed to be awake. I wasn't supposed to see them." I felt his terror in my own bones, his pulse racing, his breath shallow, the moment he realized the sedatives hadn't worked. I saw the door open. Not fully, just a sliver, but enough for him to see a figure in a white coat, face obscured by shadows, holding something metallic. The vision snapped abruptly, leaving me gasping like I'd been underwater. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to separate his panic from my own. But the emotions clung to me, refusing to let go. I wasn't just witnessing their memories. I was absorbing them. The more I came here, the more I blurred with the remnants of the people who had been trapped inside this room. Whoever they were, whatever had been done to them. I turned toward the chair in the corner. It wasn't empty anymore. A shape sat there, a faint outline, almost like heat rising from pavement. I blinked hard and it vanished. But the indentation on the cushion deepened, as if someone invisible had just shifted their weight. "No," I whispered. "No, this isn't real." But the room responded. A cascade of emotions hit me, fear, loneliness, confusion, overlapping until I couldn't tell where one ended and another began. They weren't memories now. They were voices, layered and urgent. "Don't let them close the door. They said it wouldn't hurt. Forget, forget, forget." I covered my ears, but it didn't matter. The voices were inside me. My vision blurred again. Another memory rose like a tide, swallowing the present. This one from a teenager, a boy. I saw flashes of his shoes dangling off the edge of the bed. Heard him whisper, "Mom, did you sign it? Are you sure?" The pain that followed was so sharp it felt like a blade. His fear became my fear. His confusion, my confusion. I stumbled back, nearly falling. My hands shook as I grabbed the nightstand to keep from collapsing. The vase of flowers rattled, water sloshing over the rim. "I need to stop," I muttered. "I need to breathe." But every breath felt borrowed. Every thought felt unfamiliar. The room wasn't just showing me what happened. It was rewriting me with every second I stayed. I forced myself toward the door, desperate to escape before the next memory pulled me under. But just as I reached for the handle, the lights flickered again, slow this time, almost soothing. In the brief dimness, I saw it. A figure sitting on the bed, head bowed, hands folded in their lap, not a shadow, not a blur, a presence. When the light steadied, the figure was gone. But the bedshift, the weight of someone moments before, remained. The emotions inside me settled into a single, chilling realization. If I kept coming back here, soon there might not be anything left of me to return. By morning, I looked like I hadn't slept in days. My reflection in the staff bathroom mirror seemed slightly off. My eyes were mine, but the expression behind them didn't feel like me at all. There was a weight there, a lingering echo of every borrowed memory still clinging to my thoughts. I tried to ground myself. Cold water, deep breaths, logical thinking, but nothing cut through the fog. When I walked into the break room, 2 nurses fell silent mid-conversation. One of them glanced at me with a tight, uneasy expression, the kind people wear when they don't want to ask what's wrong but can't pretend not to notice. "You're not scheduled here tonight," one of them said carefully. "I know," I answered. Something happened upstairs on the 3rd floor." Their eyes shifted, not curious, nervous. "You shouldn't be in that wing," the older nurse said. "It's closed for a reason." "What reason?" I asked. A long, heavy pause, then barely above a whisper. "People don't do well up there." Before I could press further, the supervisor appeared in the doorway. He wasn't smiling. He never smiled, but this time his expression was sharper, colder. "Can I speak to you for a moment?" he said. He didn't wait for my answer. I followed him down the hall, heart thumping. We stopped near the admin office, where the fluorescent lights hummed loudly overhead. "You were seen on the 3rd floor last night," he said. "That area is restricted." "Restricted why?" I snapped, louder than I meant to. "There was a room with the lights on, a patient signal, a chart. I didn't imagine it." His jaw tightened. "There is no room 302, he said flatly. "There are no active patients in that wing. The system doesn't recognize anything you're describing." My stomach turned. He wasn't just denying the room. He was denying everything. I reached into my pocket for Alina's file, proof that I hadn't lost my mind. But the folder felt thinner than before. I opened it. Empty, completely blank, not even her name. My hands began to shake. "I swear there was writing here. There was a name, a signature." He gave me a measured look, the kind used on unstable patients. "Get some rest," he said, "and stay away from the 3rd floor. That's not a suggestion." He walked away before I could argue. I stood frozen, gripping the empty folder, feeling the walls shrink around me. It wasn't just that no one believed me. They didn't want to believe me. Or maybe they were terrified of what acknowledging it might mean. That evening, when the clinic quieted again, I tried to check the security footage. The cameras facing the 3rd floor showed nothing but a long, dark hallway. No door where room 302 should have been. No warm glow. No sign I had ever gone inside. But as I scrubbed through the footage, I noticed something at the edge of the frame. A blurred shape, barely visible, lingering near the wall, like someone standing just outside the camera's focus. Watching, waiting. My pulse spiked. I leaned closer, squinting, and for a split second the shape tilted its head. Toward me. The footage glitched, reset. And when the image returned, the hallway was empty again. The clinic could hide rooms, it could hide records, it could hide the people who vanished inside them. But it couldn't hide the truth from me anymore. Because whatever lived in room 302 wasn't done showing me what really happened there. By the next night, I couldn't ignore it any longer. Room 302 wasn't just a room. It wasn't a place. It was a container. A vessel for the memories, the fears, the last moments of people who had been there before me. And now it had chosen me as its audience. I reached the third-floor corridor, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the silence so thick it pressed against my ears. The door glowed faintly, just as it had the first night. I hesitated only for a moment before the pull became irresistible. The room called to me, not in sound, but in a sensation that climbed my spine and settled behind my eyes. Inside, the air was warmer than the hall, scented faintly of something floral and antiseptic at once. I stepped forward, heart hammering, and leaned over the bed. The indentation was still there, shallow now, as though someone had just left. But the moment I touched the sheets, everything changed. A rush of memories collided with my own. This time, they weren't flashes or whispers. They were full scenes, voices speaking directly inside my head. I saw a woman on the bed, her arms crossed over her stomach, murmuring, "It's supposed to erase it. It's supposed to make it stop." Her fear washed over me, the kind of pure, desperate terror that twists your stomach. I gasped and pulled my hands back, but the room didn't release me. The memory pressed on, urgent, pleading. Another voice joined hers, a man this time, saying, "I don't want to go back. I don't belong here anymore." I realized I was no longer just observing. I was part of it. Their panic, their confusion, their sorrow, it was mine now too. A third scene erupted, a teenager in the corner, rocking back and forth, whispering, "Please, Mom, did you promise them? Did you sign?" The ache of his fear shot through my chest like a bolt. I clutched at the bedpost, my vision swimming. Every heartbeat in that room reverberated inside me, matching the pulses of every person trapped in these memories. It wasn't just past pain, it was present, alive, demanding. And it started talking directly to me, the amalgam of voices weaving together. "You feel it too, don't you? We didn't choose this, but you did. If you leave, it will take more than just memories." I stumbled backward, hitting the nightstand. The glass of water wobbled but didn't fall. The vase of flowers seemed unnaturally vivid, their petals almost glowing in the dim light. My mind spun, trying to differentiate between the past and my own reality, but the line had dissolved entirely. Then I heard it, a single, distinct whisper inside my skull, stronger than any before. "You can stop it or it will rewrite everything. But you must decide." I froze. Decide what? Stay, leave, or something worse? My pulse rattled in my ears. The bed seemed to sag under some invisible weight, and the temperature of the room dropped suddenly, as if the air itself had remembered every cold night the people had spent here. And then, for a brief, terrifying second, the room felt like it was looking at me. Not the way a room should, but the way something alive, something desperate, watches a survivor. I realized I wasn't just witnessing the memories anymore. I was being tested. And whatever room 302 wanted from me next, I wasn't sure I'd be able to resist. I knew the truth the moment I stepped onto the third floor. Room 302 wasn't a room. It was a collector. A place where memories, fears, and fragments of people's lives were trapped, stitched together like a quilt of lost souls. And now it wanted mine. I hesitated at the door, heart hammering so loudly I could barely hear the silence around me. Every instinct screamed to turn away. Every part of me screamed to stay. But the pull was stronger than fear. The glow behind the frosted glass pulsed, syncing with my heartbeat, and I realized it had been waiting all along. Inside, the air was thick, charged with the emotions of countless others. I touched the bed, the indentation warm, inviting, and suddenly my own memories began to slip. Faces I had never seen, voices I had never heard. They poured into my mind, overlapping with my own thoughts until I couldn't tell where I ended and they began. A whisper rose above the chaos. "Give it to us. Let it stay. Let it remember." The voice carried every shade of desperation I had felt in the nights before, multiplied hundreds of times. I pressed my hands to my temples, trying to hold on to myself, but the memories were insistent, clawing, demanding. I realized with a sinking certainty that this place didn't heal. It erased. It rewrote. It took what it wanted. And when it was done, it left a hollow shell to carry the next story in. I saw glimpses of the ones who came before, faces fading into shadow, eyes empty, bodies pale, as if the room had consumed them entirely. I stumbled backward toward the door, but it slammed shut before I could reach it. The glow intensified, bathing the room in a harsh, almost living light. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the air. A single thought pulsed in my mind like a command. "Stay or vanish like the rest." And then I understood. The room had already begun. My memories were slipping. Pieces of me were unraveling, mixing with the lives it had collected. The longer I resisted, the stronger the pull. There would be no mercy, no record of me outside these walls. I sank to my knees, feeling myself dissolve into the countless others, part of a story I hadn't written but would never escape. And just before the light swallowed me completely, one thought lingered. No one would ever find room 302, and no one would ever find me.